The world's greatest geologist is on the verge of his next billion-dollar discovery. With looming shortages in copper, zinc, gold, and silver, this may be the best opportunity hard asset investors have ever faced. Learn more at futuremoneytrends.com/hardassets.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. And what do you do in this economy? I mean, yeah, the jobs numbers cooked. They look great unless you don't have a job and you want one. And if you want to be a bartender, a waitress, then this economy is really smoking. But if you want meaningful work, fulfilling work, not that bartending isn't a great career, if that's what you choose for yourself, if that's what you really want to do, what are you going to do? And while we're at it, let's talk about Greece. The situation there deteriorating. People are up in arms. Talk about a surefire prescription for civil unrest. And should you put all your money into Bitcoin? That's a good question. Well, my friend Daniel Ameduri is on with us now. You know him well. Dan, like me, I relate to you so much. You're a real life serial entrepreneur. I mean, first business at age 16, purchased your first rental property at 18, turned $1,200 into $1 million in just 13 months from a publishing company, no less. And now you're president of Future Money Trends. Dan, always great to talk to you.
Hey, always great to talk to you, Kerry. Thanks very much. You're definitely a mentor of mine through iTunes.
Well, I'm glad somebody's out there listening. You know, you sit here in your office, you got a microphone, and you wonder sometimes, is anybody out there listening? But fortunately, through the miracle of iTunes and your podcast server, you get to see how many people are downloading. Hopefully somebody out there is listening. But that, I mean, Greece, it's a lunatic asylum, the place. The socialist far left government puts it to a referendum. The people vote resoundingly no more banksters. We don't want to know from the ECB. We want to withdraw from the euro. And then they turn around and they agree to all of the onerous terms that the Germans, who, let's face it, run Europe now, are trying to shove down their throats. What other definition of madness can you come up with for something like this?
It kind of reminds me of our own election when we all voted, or at least maybe not us, but when the majority of Americans in 2008 voted for no more war, close down Guantanamo, and be more transparent. And of course, we got the exact opposite. We got more war and less transparency and more secret drone attacks and crimes against Americans. And here the Greece people are, rejecting the bankers. They don't want this stuff. And it's amazing, when you look at this and really think about the people in power and conspiracies, you have to kind of just scratch your head and just go, maybe the conspiracy guys aren't completely nuts on some of these things when they talk about a small core group running the world, because here is an obvious sign where even the leader of Greece who was elected was supposed to be anti-euro and anti-banker and anti-bailout. And he even got a referendum from his people. And yet he still chose to go ahead and suck it up and take what the banks gave him.
Yeah, I am just looking at it. And like you said, and then in 2010 in the U.S., Obamacare has been passed. They vote in the Republicans. Because I've just given up on the futility of voting because it's just the biggest waste of time ever concocted. But then the Republicans come in. We're going to get rid of Obamacare, and they're funding it. And yeah, it's just the same garbage over and over again. And it's what's going on in Greece. And those people are ready to have a revolution. It's like our good friend Gerald Celente says, when people lose everything, they lose it. And those Greeks are losing it. Now, granted, they're typical socialists in that they want to retire at 52 and just basically drink ouzo for the rest of their lives. And and Domestica. They've got nice local Greek wines. They're not really competitive in a worldwide market, but they do go for $2-3 a bottle. Greek's a great travel bargain as long as you don't get caught in a labor dispute. I mean, these people really believe that government is the root of all wealth, and they're finding out that it's now the root of their poverty. They've got a wake-up call coming. You just can't have government-funded prosperity for all. It just doesn't work.
Yeah. And, for Americans who are watching this, I hope some of them are watching this, because the Greek people have been in crisis for years and years and years, and it's been very public. The United States has also been in crisis, but it's not as public. It's more of an undertone. It's with you see it in the food stamps, you see it in underemployment. In your introduction, you were talking about the dramatic rise of college graduates working in bartending type jobs and waiter and waitress jobs. So it's there. The crisis is there, just like Greece has the crisis, only theirs is more public. So I think people have certainly been put on alert, even though they've been in this crisis for 5 years, it took a real, the crisis boiling over just in the past few weeks for you to see empty store shelves at the grocery stores and lines at ATMs. For Americans, it will be fascinating, as Doug Casey has said. There will be entertainment value in what happens, because if you decide to stay in the U.S., because for Americans, we've had the ultimate privilege for the last 50 years with this world reserve currency, this superpower status, and when our currency domination essentially ends, and you can really see the tide turning as we speak. I mean, it might take another 10 years, but it's definitely, things are shifting with the new alternative IMF type bank that the BRIC nations have created, and the physical gold bullion that China and Russia are buying, and just the changes we're seeing in currency transactions, not denominated in U.S. dollars. So the tide is shifting. And actually, when I spoke to Mayor Katusa a few weeks ago, he told me that when he was in the Middle East speaking to finance ministers, they were actually publicly talking to him about planning for the post-dollar world. So it wasn't even as if it was speculative. Major powers out there are planning for how they're going to proceed post-U.S. dollar dominance. So, but for Americans, when it comes close to home, unfortunately, it may be a very sad event, like the event that happened after Hurricane Katrina, when you had so many refugees. And, it's a big thing, don't be a refugee. That's the one thing you never want to be. Just do not be a refugee, especially in your own country. And I think a lot of Americans, when we do have this currency shift, even if it's a loss of a little bit of purchasing power, let's say not a little bit, but let's say 50% of purchasing power, and the nation is already, one paycheck away from broke, 76% of Americans have less than $1,000 in their checking account. I mean, we're really at a point here where if there's one crisis, let's say Greece implodes and the euro implodes, that would actually create probably a pretty strong dollar rally in the short term, but it would create a very unstable currency market in general. And the repercussions people could see across the Atlantic in the States, if there was a crisis that spread to our stock market, which I have to imagine it would, especially if we had a strong, a tremendous dollar rally. The next market crash or the next financial crisis could be the big one, because there's no ammo left. It's not like the Fed's going to lower rates. The ammo has been fired, trillions and trillions, and we are where we are, but we're now just kind of bordering. We're paper thin away from the whole thing just cracking. Yeah.
You look at the price of oil; it's back down to $52.92 today. You look what they've done to the price of silver, $15.36. Miners can't stay in business. Price of gold, $11.55. I got to believe that it's not going to stay there for very long. It hasn't in the past, but the Dow's back over 18,000. Hallelujah. The U.S. dollar hit its peak. It's been fighting to get back. Only a major disaster, like you said, is going to bring it up. I mean, it's at 96.89 today. These markets are broken, and the economy is broken, and the world economy is broken. China, disaster. Europe, disaster. I mean, we're talking disaster all over the globe here. And I don't want to be a doomer, because, look, the way I've always looked at it is, you got to take care of yourself. have these multiple streams of income, do what you love doing, and pursue your passion, and let the world take care of itself. Prepare for the worst, hope for the best. What else are you really going to do here, Dan?
It's so true. And with the disasters, there's also great and tremendous opportunity. When you have an opportunity to buy, let's say, a precious metal, silver, for $15, which there are looming shortages, or zinc or copper, where there are real shortages actively happening right now. I heard your interview last week with Max Porterfield, who's been a good friend of mine for 5 years. And I actually wrote a recent article at Future Money Trends about attaching yourself to winners. So despite what's going on around you, focusing on opportunities and attaching yourself to winners. Max's company Calinex is a good example. Here they're in a severe bear market, but Max, who's I consider an unstoppable force, he's partnered with with Carlos Savelli, who's a legendary speculator in resource stocks. He's partnered with the best geologist probably in the world. 16 discoveries and 16 projects, and I think that's only. I don't know if that's ever happened before. And then just yesterday or this week, they made news. They're getting an injection of capital from a mining fund. That get this, Kerry, they own 135 mining stocks. This fund, they own one explorer. Their second explorer will be Calinex, and they're going to be the single largest shareholder when this is done, in all likelihood. So it is just amazing when you look at, like, there are some amazing screaming buys right now, like a Calinex Mines, where you're getting like the best people, best projects, great company, and you're getting it at a severe discount from where these projects they're working on used to be owned by Hudbay and Newmont and Barrick. So there is great opportunity in attaching yourself with other winners, working through the problems. And when you see a crisis, focus on the opportunity on the other side. I think owning real assets or building real businesses, either with winners like a Max Porterfield or building one yourself. And honestly, I believe ultimately that is your best strategy to wealth is building your own business, building multiple streams of income in multiple things that you enjoy doing. Now, obviously, you're going to look at your life and say, well, 90% of my income is coming from this one thing. And that's probably the thing you should probably focus on the most, especially if you like doing it. But there's always, I have a publishing company. I have an interest in an investment advisory. I have a lot of different real estate type investments. So it's just a matter of, kind of diversifying yourself, and most importantly, enjoy your life, because you have a finite life. And I actually have a personal blog called 28,000 Days, and it's your life expectancy. Ultimately, enjoy your life, because you only get one shot at this, and you certainly don't want to just get stuck in that doom and gloom mindset. You have to acknowledge it, like you said, and then move on. But most importantly, thrive. There were more millionaires created during the Great Depression than during the 1920s, which was the Roaring 20s. So there is a tremendous opportunity to make a fortune right now by either building your own business or attach yourself with winners, with proven people who are out there looking for opportunities to acquire assets, acquire businesses, and build things, build real tangible assets.
That's really the key. I couldn't agree with you more. Find these winners like a Max Porterfield, like Keith Neumeyer. These guys are out there, and it's easy. Hey, and you forgot one other thing about Max. He's in a great jurisdiction in Manitoba, like
sure is.
One of the top jurisdictions in the world, and that's what you look for, because you could have the greatest ore quality and great infrastructure and everything else, but if you're in a socialist country and you can't get permitted, what good is it?
It's totally true. I know of a gold company a few years ago that had a great deposit, would have brought probably 3,000 jobs to the community, but it was in Portugal. and
Good
the
luck.
government just wouldn't allow it to happen. And now that company is bankrupt.
Yep. So you it's reality based investing. Like the U.S. might not be the most mining friendly, but you go to Nevada, 10% of the world's gold is produced in Nevada. You got mining friendly jurisdiction. Whether you like the politics of the power brokers in Nevada or not doesn't matter. You can get permitted there. So, and Manitoba is a great jurisdiction for mining, as Max said during our interview. And yeah, I couldn't believe the guts of Max. I mean, he's there. You see, like, the mining industry imploding all over the place, and there's Max cutting costs so that they can put the money into the ground and into exploration, which is where it needs to be. I was impressed by him. I've known him for a number of years myself, and heard he became CEO there. And said, wow, this guy's really got a set. I couldn't believe that, where wise men fear to go, huh? But
yeah, and what's interesting, especially in the mining sector and even the metal sector in general, I noticed that the high quality individuals who make a lot of money for a lot of people, because I think that's how you have to judge any of these guys, is not how much money they're making, but how much money are they making for everybody around them. Mm-hmm. And I noticed they all you look at who the major shareholders of Calinex are. You look at who the major shareholders of these other high quality names. Yeah. You look at who they're dealing with. You look at who they worked for. I look at Max. Mm-hmm. He's worked for Miranani. He's worked for Frank Holmes.
Sure.
He's worked for Steve Swatton of BHP Billiton. I mean, they all seem to be. It's all this circle. It's and look at this. I've known Max here. You and I'm finding out that you knew Max.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just kind of like the cream of the crop there, especially the junior resource sector. They tend to stick together, and that's a big advantage, by the way, because a lot of people they don't realize this when they buy just some random mining stock. These things are very capital intensive, and if you don't have the right shareholders, that's the one thing everybody always seems to miss. They'll say, "Oh, it's got great projects, it's got capital, it's got great people," but it's almost just as important to have the right shareholders, because you need the right shareholders to come in and support you when you need financing or advanced projects. And with Calinex, just to give you a quick example, Carlos Savelli, who has had 24 companies go from $1 million to $1 billion market caps. Not only is he in Calinex as a major shareholder, but he's head of their advisory board, and his son is the VP of finance.
That's right.
Now, I'm of course they're not advertising that, but let's just connect the dots here. The guy's son is the VP of finance. Do you think if Calinex needs some money, they're going to get some money? I
think so.
It's very important to be a part of these type of companies. So many of these companies nowadays, they're literally raising a few $100,000 just to keep the lights on, keep the Keurig well stocked. And not do anything. No one's really exploring. Calinex and just a few others are actually doing some actual work. So I would, and especially with Max has the potential for gold, silver, copper, zinc. But with the copper and zinc, and a lot of precious metal investors don't focus on these other metals, but there is a real meaningful shortage happening right now. And Goldman Sachs put something out a few weeks ago, and Bloomberg put something out a few months ago on zinc and copper. There is a real deficit happening for zinc right now. And as this is not just zinc. This is not just copper. This is happening in other commodities.
Oh, yes.
And when this thing turns, it is going to be epic, because not only do we have low prices, but we're going to have shortages on not just one commodity, but multiple commodities have major supply deficits, where supply is either coming from somewhere else, or like the precious metals markets, is just coming from digital paper, silver, and gold. So when these shortages happen, man, it's going to be like a domino effect. And you never know. You might end up in the perfect storm, and possibly you tie in a currency crisis. But you don't need the currency crisis, because the fact is regardless of depression or thriving times, everybody needs commodities. We all want to eat. We all want to brush our teeth. We all want to use our toilet paper and turn on and have an iPhone and computer. And even the Greek people, as they're in a crisis, and I bet you every day they wake up and check their email. I mean, it just life goes on.
That is the truth. Yeah, you got to have these base metals as well as the rare metals as well as the precious metals, or life as we know it could not continue on. And there's a limit to what the scrap market can provide. And copper is definitely in a deficit, and these low prices are just killing production and capital investment. So at some point, the pendulum is going to reverse. It always does. And the only value segment of the market right now is resources. That's it. There is no other value sector. And that's what amazes me, is that there's no value investing public anymore, it seems. Anyways, I think we really need to focus on value more than momentum, because we're reaching that point in the market where it's going to shift. When? Who knows? But even Martin Armstrong wrote an article with cars. Electric cars are going to become prevalent in the future. Each electric car right now uses 160 pounds of copper. That is only going to go up as the range of electric cars continues to increase and their quality improves. So, another thing that will drive these metals as well.
Yeah, with technology, the minerals and metals market, I mean, the demand only grows. And of course, with looming currency crisis, I imagine specifically precious metals demand will grow. And, if you are a liquid multi-millionaire, 100-millionaire or billionaire or a large fund, the liquidity is not going to the bullion dealers to have pallets delivered to them. The liquidity is going to go into the mining shares, and it's already happening. If you look at China, the recent, you don't get a lot of current information. So the only data I have is from 2014. But they had a record year of mainland China sovereign wealth funds investing in mining companies, specifically ones with gold and silver deposits. So you've got a situation where when you have not only shortages and a demand for these resources, but with the looming currency crisis, eventually when people sell stocks to get into hard assets, sure, a lot of money is going to go into the physical, but I think a lot more, I think 10 times more is going to go into the companies, the underlying companies, because that's just more realistic for most people.
Sure.
It takes a little education in Austrian economics and history to buy a gold and silver bar, like most of the people listening to this show and most of my subscribers and myself and you were doing.
Sure.
For most people, when they hear that we need to buy gold, they think Newmont Mining. They think gold stocks,
ETFs. Yeah.
Yeah. So they might buy the GLD or something like that. But I mean, if there's a real crisis in the COMEX, like as our mutual friend Andy Hoffman has shown that it could be imminent.
Yeah.
When this sparks a crisis, and then people don't even trust the ETFs, I mean, you're probably just going to want to buy the miners and physical bullion. But again, look, if you're a large fund or a pension fund, I don't think it's likely they're going to be delivering pallets and pallets of gold. I think it's more likely that they're going to put 10 million in Newmont, 10 million in Barrick, 10 million in spread out with some junior mining shares. And again, that goes back to the high quality names because there's so many scams on the TSX venture it's funny. I see Stansberry and Palm Beach and all these guys teasing. They send out these teasers on mining stocks. There are so few good high quality names. I swear, every time I hear a teaser, I guess the pick immediately. Because I was like, I know exactly who that is. Because there's only like 25 or 30 of them that are decent.
That's it. The pool is so shallow and small that you're right, you can guess them. Anyway, so you got to be on the lookout. Start developing your human capital, thinking about multiple income streams. And if you have a little left, then you got to think about where to put it and go with the winners. Anyway, Dan, we need to find out how to contact you, your website's best place to go.
Hey, I would love it if everybody would check out futuremoneytrends.com. You can subscribe free for our weekly wealth digest. It's put out every Wednesday. I think you'll really enjoy it if you read the archives. It's really personal finance for the new economy. So Future Money Trends believes that we are facing systemic risk and we are in unprecedented territory, but we have really focused on the individual thriving. We must thrive during the Great Depression of the U.S. And the severe headwinds we face probably for the next 10, 15 years.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself, Dan. And as always, you'll find links to Dan's site in the show notes to this interview on financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Subscribe to our free newsletter, our webinars coming up. And hey, Dan, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for being on.
Thank you very much, sir. You have a good day.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com.